are going to be doing some post-reading activities. We're going to start with just 3 simple questions, check your understanding. Okay, I'm going to go through them with you. So number 1, the author included the opening paragraph about not writing children's stories to A, argue why children's stories are not important, B, compare herself to other authors, C, show how she came to write a fairy tale, or D, explain why her story is not like other children's stories. Okay, now, typically when you are answering these questions, there's something to keep in mind that even if you didn't even read the story, sometimes you could still answer the questions just based off of answer choices. So they're always going to want a good moral lesson to be shown from whatever story we just read or we learned, okay? They want the theme to be a good one. So, arguing why children's stories are not important, that is not a good message to send out, and that's not what the author is doing, right? So it's not A. Compare herself to other authors. Again, that's kind of selfish. That's not really our goal here, so it's not going to be B. Show how she came to write a fairy tale. Okay. Yes, right. She is showing how she came to write a fairy tale, but let's look at D just in case it's a better answer. Because remember, sometimes there's more than one right answer, but you're always looking for the best answer. And D, explain why her story is not like other children's stories. No, again, that's just trying to say why she's better or different, and that's not her purpose. Her purpose was to show us how she wrote a fairy tale. Okay, so number 2, moving on. Which of the following is a central theme in the story? Oh no, I already had the answer on there for you. You saw it, but that's okay. Private security measures are important for people's safety? No, that's not the main point of this, even if it is a point taught in the story, okay? Sometimes people must suppress the majority population. Absolutely not. That is not a good answer. If you don't know what suppression is, look it up, but you don't want to be suppressing a majority population or supporting anyone that does. So, letter H, people shouldn't allow fear to dictate their actions and isolate them. That is true in general. In life, that is a good statement. It was shown in the story, okay, so that's a good answer. And J, police and law enforcement can control robberies and intrusions. We know, based off common sense, sometimes they can't, okay? Sometimes police are able to, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it gets out of hand and they can't control the situation. So that is not a picture-perfect answer, so it's not J. So the correct answer would be H, okay? People should not allow fear to dictate their actions and isolate them. Check. Okay. Now, moving on to number 3. Hopefully this one did, but I'm going to refresh it as soon as we get here in case. It didn't again. Okay. Number 3. The author's purpose for writing this selection was most likely to warn about outsiders trying to invade your home. No, that is not the purpose of the story. Hopefully you're like locking your doors and already aware of that. That does happen sometimes, but I hope you don't have to worry about your house being robbed all the time. That's scary. Okay. B, explore different home security systems. Not the purpose of a story. No one is going to tell you a story to try to get you to buy a home security system. Well, they could if they were like a security salesman, I suppose. But typically those are going to be like informational stories, not entertainment stories such as this one. C, tell about a curse that was placed on the neighborhood. It does, but was that the whole point of writing it? Is that the big takeaway that she wanted you to get from her story was there was a curse one time. I just wanted to tell you about it. Don't do anything with that information. I just wanted to tell you, and there's no underlying meaning hidden anywhere in this story. That's never going to happen with the stories they select, okay? They're always going to pick a story that was not just written for fun, but like I said, also will teach you something. So D, show the dangers of fear and paranoia. Okay, that is the correct answer, and she did it in an entertaining way. Okay, so that is all for the check your understanding. We have here, this is set up a little funny. I believe it will look the exact same for you. It's showing me it'll look the same for you, but this is the teacher screen, so we'll have to see. So the way it's going to work, it basically gives you the same page 5 pages in a row, but at the top of each one, there's a different question. So number 1, connect. Number 2, infer. Okay, so each of these will have a different question, and then the rest of the page is the exact same. So you're only going to do part of this page, so pay very close attention to what I want you to do, okay? Okay, so number 1, analyze the text. Connect. Number 1, connect. Nadine Gordimer wrote many stories about the injustices of the apartheid. Okay, so you should know what it is from the background reading. If you're still unsure, do a little Google about the apartheid, okay? She was also active in bringing change to the political entities of South Africa. Even though her books were banned in South Africa for a time, she resolved to stay instead of living in exile. What do you learn about Gordimer's political point of view by reading this story? Explain your ideas using evidence from the story. Okay, so she had her whole underlying meaning in this story. I need you to really pull that out and see how she was actually referring to what was going on in her life during the apartheid, right? So you're going to type your answer there, and then you're going to go down, and you may just want to go on to the next one. Actually, before you go down, okay, number 2, infer. Authors often leave things unstated in a story, leaving the reader with questions about the outcome. What can you infer about what Gordimer leaves unstated at the end of her story? I'm sorry, I cannot read today. How does it relate to her statements about the family living happily ever after? Okay, so you're going to keep answering those. When you have finished all 5 questions, okay, so when you're on the 5th page, you finish the notice and note question, which should be easy because it should be in your annotations. You're going to go right here to research, okay? Fairy tales are one of the oldest forms of writing and originally came from oral stories passed down through cultures. Research and read a few well-known fairy tales and write a summary for each fairy tale. Record what you learned in the chart, citing your sources, then share your findings with a partner and discuss the structure and characteristics of the fairy tale. Okay, we are not going to share with a partner. And for citing your sources, I don't want a technical citation. You can just copy and paste the link, okay? And then this summary, I want it to be 3 sentences, okay? Bare minimum, just tell me what happened. So if in the first one, you want to do the Little Red Riding Hood. Okay. And it is a short story, so you need to put it in quotation marks. Okay, it's not italicized. And then underneath this, put the link to the website you used. I can't pull up another screen that's stuck on the screen, so I'm not going to be able to do that for you right now. And then in your summary, you can say Little Red Riding Hood loved to walk through the forest and take her grandma cookies. One day, when she went into the house, it wasn't her grandma. It was actually the big bad wolf that was in disguise so he could eat her up. Okay, and I would add a little more, right? Because we want to know kind of the point of the story. It's not just about a wolf eating her up. So you could even say at the end, the moral of the story was to be careful. Let's see. To be careful about who you trust, because sometimes the person you trust may be a wolf in grandma's clothing instead of a wolf in sheep's clothing. You get it? So that was just off the top of my head. I'm also hoping I remember that story fully correctly. I may have left out a few details. You can go over 3 sentences, okay? I don't want you to have to feel like you need to put big, long paragraphs. So sum up the story and tell me kind of the meaning behind that, okay? The moral of the story for 3 of them, all right? So do 3 different ones. Don't use my example. And then we will move on after that to this part down here. So I'm hoping the questions should only take you about 10 minutes. If you need a little more time, 10, 15 minutes, you go on. Researching the fairy tales and typing your little summaries shouldn't take you more than another 15 minutes. Okay, so we're at like 30, 35 minutes. So then you can get started on this down here. It's the essential question for this whole story about Once Upon a Time. It goes to our essential question. How can we come together despite our differences? How can people in general, society, come together despite the differences we all have? So this review your annotations and notes on Once Upon a Time. Then add relevant information to your response log. As you determine which information to include, think about how the family becomes increasingly isolated, what happens to a society when fear takes over people's lives, what the cat might symbolize as the people in the story shut themselves off from others. At the end of the unit, use your notes to help you write a personal essay. So we are not going to do that. I do want you to look at your annotations you have made and answer these questions, okay? So just kind of a couple of sentences about your thoughts on it. So how does the family become isolated? What do you think happens to a society when fear takes over people's lives? And what do you think the cat symbolized? Let's say for these 3, try to get about half a page, just your thoughts. It's not I don't want you to write a long, drawn out, full-on essay. Okay, maybe just half a page. Do this in your digital composition with today's date, okay? And then I'll have an assignment for you to turn that in. All right? And then it wants you to use these words. You don't have to use all of them, but I want you to pick at least 2 vocabulary words from this to use in your journal write for today. Okay, so pick 2 and write those, and then answer these questions up here in the fairy tale and source. Got it? Okay, good luck. Let me know if you need help.